Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Command Center, where we like to put our favorite commander, maybe even yours, front and center. And you know we can't do that unless we're playing those three devious letters, EDH. What does it stand for today, Derek?
Today we are trying to entice devastating haymakers. And it sounds kind of crazy, but believe me, we're trying to bring them out. We're trying to bring out the worst in our opponents today.
Yeah, we're trying to bring out the best, but bringing out the worst. So, of course, you're tuned in to our Law of Power series, the 48 Laws of Magic Powers, and we've made our way all the way up to Law 8.
Moving along, we are, I'm not going to do the math, but we're getting there. We're not quite.
Not 8, 48,
something like that.
Numbers. All right. So, specifically with Law 8, the title of this one, we want to make others come to you. I think it's very short and simple.
It really is. Yeah, we want to be able to get other people to, and there's been some similar ones, but in this case, you want to be in a position where you're getting other people to go out of their way and waste more of their stuff, and you can kind of sit back and remain in control for most of the game.
That's right. So let's make this a little bit more clear with a little bit of flavor text. One of my favorite sections of this.
Yes, and this is actually one of my favorite cards. It's a relatively new one, and I think it's awesome. And it's the flavor on Narset's Reversal. Specifically, it says, in the disarray of battle, an enemy's attack might be your most convenient weapon. And this is so true, because if you try to, allow, essentially you want to help your opponents just load up their cannons, get this big attack coming, and you want to be the one that's going to help direct it or redirect it where you feel like it needs to go.
That's true. So, how about we just jump into some of the principles? And we're going to switch this up just a little bit from our typical episodes. Instead of doing a commander spotlight at the end, we're going to do maybe some commander spotlights while we go through some of the principles.
There's a lot. There's a lot of really good commanders for this.
Yeah. So one of our first principles, to make this a little bit more clear for you, when you force others to act, you are the one in control. Always remember that. As Sun Tzu says. So, as this is stating, you are basically making your opponents do the work, and they're probably falling right into your trap. They're coming at you, probably most likely, or they're coming at your other opponents. At the end of the day, they're doing exactly what you want them to do.
In this one specifically, you want to be able to essentially choose when things are happening. This is the type of law that you want to be able to determine in every game of EDH, or most of them, unless you're playing in a stacks pod. Exciting things are going to happen. You're going to have crazy stuff going off, but you want to be able to control when that's happening. So it's at a time when you not only have the answers, but when you have the resources available to use those answers in a way that's going to only benefit you or very, unbalanced in your favor.
That's right. So let's actually just jump into one of the commander spotlights just to highlight what we're talking about. So this one is new for you. I've known about this for a while, and I've always been trying to figure out the best way to use this card.
Ridiculous.
This is from a while back. This is Iwamori of the Open Fist.
Who we talked about this. Krosa and him, they're either cousins or like
same clan or something.
It's the same person. I think that he just went by. He's in the witness protection program. He went by a different name. It's the same dude.
It's the same guy. Like, just look at that art. Dude is swole beyond swole. All right. So why are we talking about this card in particular? It's because that you're only spending 4 mana. This could be your commander or it could be a card in your deck. It doesn't matter. This could be you're spending 4 mana when it hits the battlefield. It's a 5/5 with trample. But unless your other opponents choose a legendary creature from their hands and just throw it into play. No questions asked.
Wait, was this one a 5/5 or an 8/8?
This one's a 5/5.
This one's the 5/5.
Yeah.
So this seems very unbalanced because all of a sudden 4 mana 5/5 with trample. That's not even that good of a rate. And all of a sudden, your opponents are throwing whatever legend they want from their hands just onto the battlefield.
Yeah.
Why? Because my first reaction, and when I saw this, I was wondering, why?
Yeah.
I understand why he went into witness protection. This is a terrible card. He didn't want to have that reputation. But why is this something we want to do?
So when we play this, we're getting our opponents to possibly play powerful cards. Mm-hmm. If it has a legendary in it, it probably does something nasty. All right,
that's true. So, you can cheat mana cost with this. So they could have that Vorinclex, or hopefully not Vorinclex.
Hopefully not.
The jerk card for jerks. They can go whatever they want. They can have a giant Neza Hall, whatever the biggest CMC thing you could think of, and just throw it down.
Yeah.
So yeah, that seems pretty good.
So yeah, you're getting your opponents, you're giving them favors, party favors, almost like a group hug effect. Mm-hmm. So one, if this has a group hug effect, they may not come at you with this powerful creature that they just drew down because you just helped them out. Two, you're figuring out what's in their hands before they want you to. And you can also probably hold removal spells in your hand as well to figure out what you need to get to send these targets to. First thing that comes to mind for me is Beast Within will take out the nastiest thing that hits the table as soon as they just, oops, I dropped down a powerful legend, and now it's a 3/3 beast.
This is also a great card to run in general to lure out things that you want to use removal on. Let's say you have a Swords to Plowshares or something in hand. Especially Exile effects are great with this because you just get rid of the card for good.
Yeah.
If you have that in your hand, there's a lot of times where you have the mana, you almost feel obligated to use that removal on something. Being able to just bait out something to use that removal on is great. But I think the best situation for a card like this, I love it in situations where a board wipe, the board wipe is nearing, and you want to get even more value on that board wipe. If the board's getting a little bit big, things are getting a little just clustered. If you go ahead and play this, and everyone might be like, oh wow, the value. They might not even think of the logic of, okay, board wipe might be coming, the board's a little cluttered. They might be like, I can play an 8 CMC card for free. And they just go ahead and throw it on the table.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that board wipe you were about to cast next turn goes from just destroying everything to essentially destroy the board and pick the best creature out of everyone's hands. Get rid of that too.
Yeah.
So you could essentially force them to, out of character, get a little too excited and drop stuff that they didn't mean to play until later.
Yeah. Another example of a board wipe you gave, sort of a board wipe, not exactly, this is more of a targeted removal in mono green, was Apex Altasaur. Altasaur.
It's just an angry dinosaur.
Angry dinosaur. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mad Barney.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Barney.
So for 9 mana, this guy comes down, it's a 10/10, and it's just sniping off other creatures on the board until it dies because it has to forever fight mechanic until it dies.
This is such a cool card, dude. I think literally this card seems insane because obviously with Magic damage resets.
Yeah.
So you could essentially have it in different ways where, okay, everybody play your best thing. I'm going to throw this Altasaur out and then just pick off all your best things and get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a strong card and it's repeatable, and if you use it right, especially with certain indestructible effects, you give this thing indestructible.
Yes, it's over.
That board just continually dies, and to be able to bait that stuff out before is, because after you play this, no one's playing anything. Believe me, when this thing hits the board, nobody is playing their big threats.
Yeah.
You got to get those out first so you can drop a bomb like this to just basically, it doesn't look like it's a carnivorous dinosaur.
I don't know.
I don't know what it's doing. Apparently, it's just just
stomping on people.
Yeah, it's just stepping on people. I guess that's what it's doing. But it's angry and it's taking things out.
Yeah. Another card, the 8/8 that you alluded to. This is not a legend, but it's in red, just so we can throw another color variation around. This was Boulderware Heavyweights. So for 4 mana, this 8/8.
This card's ridiculous.
This 8/8 trample 2-headed giant thing comes out, and it lets your opponents search their libraries for any creature card, and they can put them onto the battlefield.
This thing is. This is another one I read it, and I was like, "Why was this printed? He needs to go into witness protection. We're going to see another version of him at some point in time."
Yeah,
they're picking any card from their decks, and again, what your reaction should be to this, and what my initial reaction was, why would you play this? But if you are in the right color combinations and in the right deck, there are times if you want to just get that big threat out of the way, because most people's decks you're playing against, you don't know what's in the deck. If you give anybody the opportunity, a lot of decks too, they have plans. They want to be at a certain tempo. They want to do things throughout all the stages of the game to win. Throwing off that tempo is huge. If you throw off that rhythm of the deck, that might throw off their whole game plan. And out of nowhere, someone just coming up to you and be like, pick the best creature in your deck, put it into play. That's enough excitement to throw off someone's game plan. And all of a sudden, that key creature they need late game, you can get out early at a point in which you're ready to remove it. Now, make sure you have removal when you play this card.
Exactly.
If not,
exactly. Yeah. So another way to, I'm glad you brought up throwing your opponents off tempo. We talked about this. It's very situational. It's a very scary card, but I want to see it played more and more correctly. But Dream Halls. The 5 CMC blue enchantment, you can just pretty much let your opponents just go wild. Just discard a card of a certain color. You can cast a card for free that shares a color. And I like this from my standpoint because you're throwing them off tempo. They can have maybe 6 or 7 cards in hand. at the end of their turn, they're probably going to be left with 1 or 2 cards in their hand. Things that they weren't even expecting to play when they played them. And it's already on the battlefield, ready at your disposal to get rid of when you feel like it.
This is really never, until looking at this law, it's never something I thought about. And it's just basically tempting your opponents with way too many resources. And this is something we're going to get into throughout this video. But when you tempt somebody with resources like that to essentially say you can play any card in your hand, forget about mana, all of a sudden, almost all decks you never want to overextend. You never want to overextend to the point where if something blows everything up, you're just out and you're done. Dream Halls puts opponents in a situation where they get so excited that all of a sudden, forget logic, I'm going to completely overextend, have no hand left, have all my stuff out, and it's very easy to fall into that trap because all of a sudden all these possibilities come that you didn't expect.
Yep.
And it is because you're the one playing it, hopefully you can hold back a little bit and be in a situation where everyone wastes all their resources and you have a handful of cards to take over.
Yep. So a lot of times EDH players are faced with the conundrum. Do I make the smart play or do I make the fun play? So this will put them into that situation.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on.
Yeah, that's a win. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that's a win-win. In that situation, either big fun things are happening or, you're being smart and strategic, but it's going to allow things to happen. It's a card that helps you win, but can also just make for fun board states.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to the second principle. Reacting versus directing. You want to make sure that you are keeping your opponents reacting. And you're not necessarily directing their plays and their movements and their play styles and everything, but you're keeping them on their toes and they are not actually on their game plan. So other thing to kind of keep in mind with this is that aggressive people are never in control. With this in mind, you also want to make sure that you are saving your resources when others come to you or for you. So it'll appear that you always have an answer to what they throw at you. So this is a way, what all this is saying is that basically keep your opponents on your toes. If they come for you, it's going to seem like you have answers because you're steadily saving resources.
This is, and I talk to people, obviously all I do is Magic. I talk to people a lot about Magic. This is probably the number one piece of advice I give to everyone. And it's that people are going to run similar amounts of removal, but when you use that removal is one of the most important things in how you play. And what I always try to tell people is hold your removal. You want to be in a spot when you're the aggressor and you're just blowing stuff up. Just, I drew a Crossing Grip. I'm going to blow that up. Mm-hmm. I drew this. I'm going to blow that up. One, it does, in the sense of this law, it makes you look weak in a sense that you're just being the aggressor. You're being emotional. You're kind of like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. You're just going off of almost like instincts. I'm just going to blow something up.
Yeah.
But what you should do instead is if you hold it up and the best way to do this is as soon as someone comes at you, as soon as anything is done to you, always have an answer. Always respond. Never let anyone blow one of your things up or attack you without you responding, not in an emotional way, not yelling at them, but by answering back with game mechanics, blowing their stuff up, having an answer. And if all of a sudden you hold up all those removal spells only when people do things to you, it's going to create the illusion that you always have answers.
Yeah.
You might only be running 4 or 5 board wipe or 4 or 5 counter spells or targeted removal spells. But if you always keep them in hand, people are going to be terrified and they're like, I'm not going to attack him. He always has an answer. And giving off that perception is, to me, one of the biggest parts of this law in basically making people aggress you first, and they're not going to want to because of this threat.
Yeah. So one of the commanders that definitely fit into this that I've used in the past is Okagachi, Vengeful Spirit.
Yes.
The card itself is a monster because it says that if someone hits you, it's night-night. It's over for them. So if someone attacks you and Okagachi comes out and then, deals combat damage to them, you can just remove a permanent of theirs, exile a permanent from theirs. Mm-hmm. But the way that I build the deck is that my entire deck does that. So if you think of swinging or sending a spell or sending a fireball or lightning bolt my way, deflecting palm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's probably coming back to your face.
Yeah.
And even the card that we mentioned in our opening, Narcisse Reversal, fits into this. Yeah.
And I guess the way to sum this up in just, I went on a whole tirade. The best way to sum it up is to play petty, don't be petty.
Yeah.
And it's because you want to play petty. That is the best strategy to have because you want to make sure that you're being petty playstyle wise, but don't show that emotionally. Don't show that by lashing out because it's one, it'll ruin the play experience. 2, it's going to make you look weak as a player.
Yeah.
And playing petty. That is, I endorse that, and make sure you always do that.
And it keeps your opponents off the toes if they think that you're petty.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
But you maintain that control.
Exactly.
Right?
You don't act crazy in the process.
All right. Moving on to another principle. It's always better to make your opponents come to you, abandoning their plans. So we've kind of touched on this just a little bit in the beginning with the creatures that actually makes them just throw creatures on the board or search their libraries and put ones on the board. But there's other ways to just make sure that they are doing what you want them to do. Mm-hmm. You brought this one up. This was Scheming Symmetry.
This card is so much value for the 1 mana you get. My favorite way to use this card, so many times in a game, someone will come out and say, man, I really need to top deck this board wipe. Oh, I really need this extra land. Oh, I really need this. What you want to do is as soon as you hear the I need, that's when you can play this and be like, hey, I'm going to go ahead. You get what you want. I'm going to pick you. I see you need that. Just, if you get that, whatever, use it on this. Or if you get that, go ahead and board wipe now. Or you can literally control, and essentially for this 1 mana, you tutor for whatever card you want, because people are always going to forget about that. And you're going to be able to cast essentially another card for free that an opponent's going to go ahead and get. The value on this card is crazy.
That's right. And like I said, it works the exact same way if you need to your opponents need to dig for a creature that can deal with the threat on the board.
Yeah.
All right. You're playing the cards like the Boulderware Heavyweights or Hunted Wumpus. Also does the same thing.
That's a great name.
Hunted Wumpus. All right. This also lets them put a card into play for free. All right. Commander Spotlight for this one. This one gets a bad rep, but I think it fits into this category. This was probably one of the most terrible cards from the new Commander set. I'm ashamed to even say his name. That's how much but it's Primacon Sky Rampart.
The Wall.
All right. When you play this card, you are throwing your opponents off of their game plan. All right. You're basically saying that you cannot attack wherever you want. You can only attack in this direction. Mm-hmm. If you know that this is your game plan going in, all you have to do after that is make sure that you're defending from the one player who can only attack you. Make sure that they're not coming at you.
And it's also, you put yourself in a good spot because you get to pick the direction, correct?
Yeah.
So basically how it's going to work is you have one person to each side. Whoever is in the weaker state, you have a pretty good chance in a 4-player pot of at least one of those people not being in a commanding board state. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you have that weaker player who's able to attack you, and everyone else just gets thrown off. And even though this Primacon is the cause of it, and obviously it's going to draw some ire and people might not like it, all of a sudden everyone's plans shift. Because if you have that one player sitting over there who has this huge board who's ready to kill somebody, and all of a sudden you just play this card saying who they're going to kill, the whole dynamic is going to warp. And this is the type of thing that you want because you're controlling it. Yeah, people's priorities get changed, and all of a sudden that player that was going to win, just things get thrown off, and people may panic in that situation.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, what you're planning to do with this principle is keeping your opponents off toes, off balance as usual, and you're in control. And at the end of the day, they're probably looking to you for support.
Yeah.
Or, cushion. I don't know what they're looking for. All right. So one of the last principles that we want to mention is lure your opponents with fabulous games.
Yes.
Then attack.
This is my favorite. I feel like this sums up. I didn't mean to, we're going to get into details.
Yeah.
This is my favorite part. I feel like this sums up this whole law. This is manipulation at its best. I love this.
Yeah. So what was the mechanic that you thought about for this principle?
So my first thing is Monarch. The Monarchy, one, I feel like, in my opinion, every EDH game should just start with the Monarchy because it creates just a more fun dynamic. Uh-huh. But I won't go on a tirade. I just think the Monarchy is perfect for this because essentially what it's going to do is everyone all of a sudden wants to start attacking. EDH is a format where so many games, people just don't want to attack. They're so hesitant to even use combat. And there's a lot of decks who are completely built ignoring combat. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, that control deck and that blue, counter spell deck and the stacks deck, when the Monarchy hits, all of a sudden, they want to attack. They're trying to sneak in for damage because that extra card draw, they can have all the card draw in the world. Everyone wants to be the Monarch.
Yeah.
And people, if their plans are thrown off because all of a sudden they're using resources to try to get in damage and everything like that, you can really warp the game. And all of a sudden it turns into a really fun game of who's poking who to go ahead and get the Monarchy.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I love. I don't necessarily like game controlling things. I don't like stack decks. I don't like chaos decks that don't let you play things. But when a thing like the Monarch is able to warp the game in a fun way,
Yeah, it enables combat.
yeah, it's one of just my favorite things about EDH.
All right. One of the commander spotlights we have for this one is Queen Marchesa. She's Monarch on a stick.
Yeah, she brings the Monarch herself.
Yeah. So anytime that you feel like being the Monarch or don't feel like being the Monarch, Queen Marchesa is right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And of course, there's a lot of other cards that support Monarch
For sure.
that you can throw in that deck as well. But anytime that you just feel like taking the monarchy away from someone, you can just cast her or recast her, get her back on the board. Another way that we want to lure our opponents in with fabulous games, braids.
Yes.
Blue braids.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
not
talking
the band braids, but blue braids
Yeah.
is another example of you can almost become people's friends with this card because all of a sudden every turn, obviously you want to build this deck to where you have all the biggest, coolest things, but again, it's similar to the Monarch. It warps the game in a fun way where everyone's getting to play their biggest, coolest stuff. Mm-hmm. So you're not necessarily immediately going to be a target, and everyone's going to kind of be looking at you that you were the one who made this game even more fun because all this big, crazy stuff is happening.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you can have your traps in your deck to make sure that you can do creature control, like Reigns of Power, mind control, other mind controlling effects.
Yes.
To make sure that you can just take their goodies and swing back at them when you get the opportunity.
Exactly. Anticipating huge threats, like you said, stealing effects, clone effects, you can benefit from that stuff a lot more than the opponents can.
That's right. Also, last thing I want to mention in this category, Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. Now, a lot of people, they whimper when she hits the board. But just convince them, make them remember, hey, when she's here, you do double damage to that guy over there. You're dealing double damage when you don't attack me. So
you gotta have real good politics to be able to pull this card off. But if you can, more power to you. But it is another thing, again, warping the game in a way that, like you said, this is a great card to break out if two players have a feud going on, though. Because all of a sudden, you can just basically ignite this feud and ignite it real fast. Because all of a sudden, both those players might end up dead.
Yeah, just make a promise. I won't even attack with my board for a turn or two. Like, just throw it out there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to sit still and be cool.
It's essentially, a Furnace of Wrath is kind of the same idea, too.
Yeah.
Doubling damage. It gets to a point where people get a little bit overexcited and, again, abandon game plans and do what you want them to do.
Yeah. Sometimes people even forget that their damage doubles, and they, just go all in at a player, just knocking them completely out, and not even realizes that they could have actually split up those resources.
Yeah.
I've seen it a few times in games where people just overextend themselves and then leave themselves wide open for the crackback.
Yeah.
When they didn't actually have to, because math.
Math is for blockers.
All right, so I think that we got through this one pretty smoothly. I like how this one turned out. This one actually applies to Commander, and that's what we want to try to figure out for each of these laws to see how they do or do not apply to Commander. And if they do, we definitely want to bring them to you and break them down as best as we can. Most
definitely. I love this one. This has been one of my favorite laws so far. I love that so many aspects of this law bring more fun to the table. It's not the oppressive mind control psychotic stuff. Yeah. This is more bring some fun to the table, but at the same time, if you're in control, you're going to benefit off that fun a whole lot more than everybody else.
That's right. So be sure to check out our affiliate link down below. We're affiliated with TCG Player. If you want to pick up some of these cards that we mentioned, like Imawari, or Hunted Wampus.
Buy Imawari before he disappears for good. He's in that witness protection. We don't know how long it's going to last. Just scoop him up fast.
Yeah, so be sure to check out use the affiliate link if you want to pick up some of the cards that we talked about, or some of your future purchases as well.
For sure.
Also check out our Patreon, see what we have to offer. We definitely appreciate the patronage and everything that you guys have to give. It definitely helps support the show and helps us be able to create more and more content on a regular basis. But I think that we're going to take a break because I think even though this law was fun, who knows what the next one has in store.
Yeah. Be scared. It's always a law or two away from full sociopaths coming back. So enjoy the nice ones because they're few and far between.
So until next time, peace.